Hi, my name is Marion Douglas, and as many of you know, I'm an entrepreneur and life coach. And so, from time to time, we get to sit down with each other and talk a little bit about some of the things that stand between us and having a life full of wealth and health and love and passion and all those things that we say that we want. And in my mind, the biggest issue uh, that stands between us and having that happen is what goes on in our heads. And so we address what that is from time to time in order for everybody to kind of get a clarity about what it is they're thinking, how it is that they're thinking that. So we've been talking about this issue of fear, and the last time we sat down and was we were talked about the biggest fear that people have is the fear of public speaking, which is of course attached to embarrassment and things like that. But also there is the second biggest one, which is the fear of death. Now, in my experience, the fear of death is attached to a fear of the unknown, which is how it manifests itself in life. And so the conversations that we have that limit us to trying and doing the things that we know that we're capable of has something to do with that the conversations that are attached to the fear of the unknown. In my experience, and so I found this come up many times in myself that the instant that somebody suggests something that's outside of what we have termed as our comfort zone or our box, we tend to get a little anxious about that, a little uncomfortable. And the bigger that it is, the further that we have to go outside of our box in order to do that, the more uncomfortable it feels to us. And as the discomfort starts to rise, then the conversation gets louder and louder in our ears, and eventually we talk ourselves out of trying it at all. Okay, that's basically what's going on. So people generally that this happens to are afraid of what might happen, what could go wrong. You might have conversations like that. What if it doesn't work? Those kinds of things. I mean, what if I lose everything? And what if I try this and then I lose, I fail, and then I lose everything that I've gotten up until now? And those fears right there are the kinds of fears that keep most people exactly where they are, and it keeps them from trying things that they certainly are capable of and achieving things that they say that they want. And it's not that they can't do it, it's that they're afraid that if it doesn't work, this is the conversation that they hear in their head. If it doesn't work, then they're going to lose something. Now, here's the biggest loss. Some part of you, in order for you to be completely out of your box about something, some part of you does die. Some conversation that you have, some fear that you have, something about you that you currently think is totally you, something about you actually does die. And it has to die in order for some new part of you to live. This is the world that we live in. So if you look around in nature, you'll see this very commonly go on all the time. Something dies in order for something else to live. This is how plant life continues and how animal life continues. And frankly, it's how uh, human life continues. And so to get more out of life, you would have to accept on some level, a part of death. It's just like when if you were raising children and when they are babies, in order to become toddlers, on some level, the whole baby thing has to go. And so the difference is that at the time that that's happening, they have no inhibitions about letting go of being a baby in order for them to learn how to walk and start to become a toddler. They have no inhibitions about that. And then they have no inhibitions at that time about being a toddler and then letting go of being a toddler and becoming a child. They have no inhibitions about that. But by the time they get to that around the teenage years, they have lots of inhibitions about that, about letting go of being a child and to in order to start becoming an adult. And there's a lot of fear that people have around that. And mainly those fears, in my experience again, is about how what has been said to me And what has been said to most people that I work with, coach, between the time that they were babies and the time it was time for them to let go and start to become adults. And then they go into their adult life carrying a lot of that conversation with them. So, and those fears. So, just if you just understand that all of these things are conditioned, they're not necessarily exactly who you are. They're just what people taught you. And when I was a young man, I I I learned that a lot of the stuff that I was doing and a lot of things that I was saying and who I was being in the world had a lot to do with what my dad had told me at one time. And so my dad had entertained a lot of limitations, and so I grew up and experienced those limitations and took them on myself along with the conversation that went along with them that held them in place. So, to the degree that you want to be different from the way that you are right now and have things be different in the world, have yourself show up in the world different than the way that you've shown up until now, not that that's bad, but if you have goals that are outside of what you've achieved up until now, some part of you is going to have to die in order for that to happen. And there's a place actually where you get to be okay with that. So, this is Marion Douglas. My coaching is be okay with that part of you that has to go in order for a new part of you to live. It's what we call surrendering. I surrender part of myself in order for a new part of myself to be exposed in the world and have different results because I say so. So, what do you say so? What do you say so about? What are you letting go in order that a new part of you actually gets a chance to live and make some of your dreams that are currently unfulfilled fulfilled?